Before Lucille Ball's death, she left behind more than just laughter and television history. Behind the scenes, there was more than what the public knew. In old interviews, in private conversations, in stories that are off-camera are sharp warnings. About actresses she found to be anything but sweet away from the cameras. They were actresses who were loved by the general public, but was feared by insiders. Ambition, power struggle, backstabbing, and meanness were all masked by perfect smiles. To join us and learn 7 of the actresses that Lucille Ball went quietly exposed as truly toxic forces in Hollywood. What she exposed shocked those who knew the industry best, and this could revolutionize the way you look at traditional TV characters. Ava Gardner, beauty with a taste of cruelty. What kind of woman could make Lucille Ball say? Of the pain she could cause? It was, according to Lucille, Ava Gardner. Ava had something harder than talent, something Lucille Koenig believed to be infinitely more dangerous, a mix of beauty and cruelty. Their feud had nothing to do with a misunderstanding or rivalry for roles. It all started when Ava began to focus her eye on people she considered to be inferior to her. Lucille was a first-hand witness to it. One afternoon of the mid-1960s during an MGM wardrobe fitting, a young assistant nervously presented Ava with a just-steamed dress. There was a small imperfection, only a slight softening of a seam due to too much steam. Barely perceptible. Ava gazed at the girl for a moment, then spoke slowly and coldly. "Don't bother fixing it. You can't fix incompetence with..." "What?" "Amy. More incompetence." The room went silent. The girl was frozen in embarrassment. Lucille felt her chest constrict as she watched from close by. This was not diva behavior, nor was it stress or perfectionism. This was pleasure. Pleasure taken in dominating someone who couldn't fight back. Later, Lucille confided in a confidant. Ava did not make mistakes. She made victims. Only. Grew even worse. At an industry cocktail party not long after, someone dropped Lucille's name into conversation. In conversation, Ava smirked and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Oh, the washed-up clown. She's still working." Gasps erupted in the room. Ava didn't bat an eye. She didn't care. 2. Lucille, the cruelty was purposeful, honed akin to a knife intended to slice deeply. Lucille believed Ava's beauty had engrossed people, making them oblivious to the rot beneath. If she hadn't been beautiful, she told, no one would have tolerated who she really was. Both of these women were never able to reconcile. Ava's beauty aged to Hollywood legend, yet Lucille's memory of her aged to pure disgust. And even in her final years, whenever Ava Gardner's name appeared in a magazine or documentary, Lucille would quietly mutter the same thing. People have no idea what she is behind that face. But aside from that, she is very friendly and warm. Sometimes, you can. From Ava Gardner, who else made it to Lucille Ball's evil list? To learn more about the evil list and the other actresses, Lucille. Judy Garland, talent that left wreckage in its wake. This one tends to shock a lot of individuals. Judy Garland will always be remembered as one of the most loved figures in Hollywood, a fragile and brilliant mind shattered by the cruelty of the studio system. In public, Lucille Ball often expressed admiration for Judy's work at MGM, where although extraordinary talent, she spoke about the quality of her voice, the presence, and the magic that she had brought with her onto the screen. But in private, so far as people close to Lucille knew, her feelings were much more complicated than this. Lucy loved Judy's talent, said a longtime friend of Ball in an interview. However, she was very brutally honest about the damage Judy caused. Lucille was sure genius did not excuse the mess caused. As she often said, talent doesn't give you the right to destroy other people's careers. Ball and they all knew Garland from their early days at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, where their paths kept recurring again and again throughout the years. The contrast between them couldn't have been sharper. Lucille built her career on reliability and discipline. Judy, sadly, received notoriety for the opposite, arriving hours late, missing performances altogether, or coming to them intoxicated enough to be ineffective. What worried Lucille most wasn't Judy's issues. It's the collateral damage. Crew members sitting behind the scenes filming for hours. The producers hemorrhaging money due to the missed shooting schedules. The lesser-known co-stars keeping losing opportunities while whole productions fell apart. A television director who worked closely associated with Lucille in the 1970s is a remembrance of one unpleasant experience. All the crew members were already on location at 5 in the morning, waiting for Judy to turn up. Then at 2 in the afternoon, she finally arrived and acted perfectly for 30 minutes before. Said she was too tired to go on with the task. A whole day's worth of production was simply lost. The following day, in fact, it appears that the producer fired 3 crew members in order to pay for the budget overrun. Lucille revealed that it was actually the first part that haunted her. It was an experience that especially touched a nerve for Ball. This was because she had worked hard to climb out of There was one part that haunted her. B-movies, and working on the radio, bouncing from disappointment to disappointment, yet doing it with aplomb. She felt that wasting such vast talent at her own expense seemed close to a crime. Judy is 30, was always late, always a mess, and someone always got fired for it, Lucille supposedly said during a private dinner in the late 1970s. And everyone excused themselves because when she showed up, she was magic. But the body count around her was real. Lucille's assessment may seem harsh. However, it also reflected her true conviction about Hollywood, namely that the brightest stars always owe something to the hundreds of unseen individuals who helped them achieve stardom. Lucille was saddened by the death of Judy Garland in 1969 because she had been a huge talent. Lucille. Her friends felt that she believed Judy's life was a tragic warning. Addiction, Lucille thought, doesn't. This quality is such that it only destroys the individual who is suffering from it. This is because it, in turn, destroys others. Lucy did not lack compassion. She knew the studio system had been very traumatic for Judy. But she refused to pretend that pain made it okay to pass this pain along to someone else. The next person. Each one on the list might come as a surprise. But what caused Lucille Ball to portray her as evil? Let's investigate. Zaza Gabor. Smiling while holding the knife when the topic of Zaza Gabor was raised, Lucille Ball didn't groan or roll her eyes. Then, she laughed. Lucille didn't fear Zaza, and she didn't resented her fame or her appearance. What she disliked about fame was not what she disliked about people, which was their appearance. What she disliked about people was Zaza is a fake from top to bottom. She wasn't merely dramatic or bratty. In Lucille's eyes, Zaza was a performance on 2 legs, a woman who used charisma while simultaneously treating everyone like some kind of discardable object. The beauty, the accent, the warmth, it was all put on supportingly once. Lucille saw behind the curtain. She could not unsee. The repulsion she felt started at a charitable event at the late 1960s. Cameras flashed while Zaza swept into the room, bedecked in diamonds and fairs, smiling like royalty. But as soon as the photographers were out of sight, the mask slipped off. A volunteer led her to a table politely. Zaza did not hesitate to snap. "I don't sit with peasants." Lucille observed it from across the room. That one statement revealed her everything she wanted to know. Then came the moment when she really lost her stomach. A young volunteer, only about 20, touched his body to her fur by mistake. Rather than correcting her calmly, Zaza leaned in close and whispered, "Sweetheart, you touch my coat again, and I'll make sure you never work an event in this town again." She offered the threat with a sweet smile, almost as if she were giving some sort of advice. Lucille felt ill watching this occur. Later that night, Lucille unburdened herself to a close co-worker. "Nothing about her is real," she said. "Not the accent, and not elegance or kindness." Fake kindness was more abhorrent than an outright cruelty. A fake person could disarm a person. A fake person could fool the world. Zaza never knew. Was changed. Years later, when she slapped a police officer in Beverly Hills in 1989, Lucille wasn't shocked at all. She just said, "There she is. The real one." Lucille never forgave her. And, in Lucille Ball's words, the most dangerous type of evil is the kind that smiles while it stabs. From Desperate to Cross, by Lucille, span from ruthless charm to merciless talent. Tune in to learn what the next actress will be on Lucille Ball's list. Bette Davis, Talent more cutting than Mercy. Bette Davis was certainly one of the best actresses. A talent more cutting than the Mercy B. Hollywood Golden Age actresses. Her career extended over several decades, and her acting contributed to the definition of the American film itself. On screen, there was her legendary intensity. However, according to those around Lucille Ball, that focus paled in comparison to Davis. Was improper behavior when the cameras were not rolling. Lucy admired Bette's tactical appropriate immensely. A friend of Ball's once said, but she used to say Bette Davis could melt celluloid with her stare, and the only thing bigger than her talent was her cruelty. The two legends had many encounters with each other, but their most telling meeting is said to have occurred at a dinner of industry professionals in the mid-60s. Some observers remembered Davis as passing the evening berating waiting F. Hannon, who could be repeatedly interrupting other speakers and making biting remarks about their fellow politicians who weren't even in attendance. Ball, who was seated at a neighboring table, was invited to join Davis's party. She refused. Turning to her host, Lucille reportedly said, "I'd rather keep my skin intact tonight." What particularly disturbed Lucille was the fact that the outside temperature wasn't just the biting tongue that made Davis infamous. It was the way she directed the tongue at those who couldn't fight back. Davis earned a reputation for attacking makeup artists and costume designers who were working on projects she was not a part of. Actors, including junior actors, often reducing them to tears, and, at times, demanding their dismissal if they failed to meet her exact standards. Lucy once overheard Bette tearing into a young actress on a soundstage adjacent to their own, says a former studio executive. The actress had gotten one word wrong in a scene. Davis took a full 5 minutes shredding her in front of the entire crew, sneering and asking if she'd learned to read in a reformatory. Lucille was so embarrassed that she immediately complained about this kind of activity to the director of the company. What made this situation worse for Lucille was that Bette Davis was a truly remarkable actress. Unlike some difficult stars who hid insecurity with arrogance, Davis possessed genuine, rare talent. They made her cruelty all the more difficult to justify. Lucy felt the truly great should lift others up, rather than tear them down, her friend continued. She used to say, "When you reach the top, you have a responsibility to be better, not worse." Even with her personal feelings of disgust, Lucille never disputed the contribution made by Davis to the film world. When Bette made an appearance on a television special entitled What About?, they were also part of the honoring of women in the entertainment industry and participated without complaint. Lucille, however, reportedly asked not to be paid for any one-on-one activities. It wasn't that Lucy was afraid of Bette, her friend continued. She just didn't see the point in hanging out with someone who enjoyed making other people unhappy, regardless of whether she herself would be harmed by it or not. Talented they were. The following actress disturbed Lucille Ball. Who could this be? Let's see. Joan Crawford, hiding glamour behind an icy heart. Lucille Ball met many tough actresses in her lifetime, but nobody rattled her more than Joan Crawford. To the public, Crawford was the epitome of Hollywood glamour, the ideal posture, perfect makeup, dripping in diamonds. But Lucille saw something much colder lurking beneath the surface. A woman who used elegance